Next, we'll talk about Composer. So Composer is really, the concept is how Fiddler got its name. You can fiddle with requests. You can create them manually. You can do a drag and drop. So I'm gonna focus on this first part first, and I'll just show you how we want to do this. So I'm gonna go back and request the page again. Now what I can do is I can say I want to take that request for Bootstrap. I want to drag it over here because I want to change something on it. And just to use the same theme we were looking at before, I'll do this. I'm going to take off the accept encoding. So I can literally modify this request in any way that I want and hit execute. And if you can see now, because it wasn't compressed, because it didn't have that header, you can see that it's a lot larger now. So you can create this by hand. So if you're doing testing and you need to do very specific things, you could do that. I generally will pull over a full request and then modify things I want to modify. And this comes in very handy because I do security testing as well. And somebody says, if you do this, weird thing, you're going to see a problem. It's not always easy to make a browser do some things. Like you can't just go in your browser and say, don't do compression today. But I can put anything I want. This is literally just the request, because that's all the web server ever sees, right? It's a request that looks like this. It's a get with a bunch of headers. That's all that it is. So this allows you to make a modification. So I'm going to show you a practical use of this. So I have this page. It lets me, I could order this really modern looking, not so much, tablet convertible, and it's $1,095 each. So if I come over here, I can see the request. I could drag it over here and drop it. And if I look at this, I'm going to actually go over here and do a post. Sorry, I'll do a check out one of those. I'm going to drag that one over. You'll notice something weird. So here's the headers of the post. It's a post to my server here. The body of it has the cost right in it, right? Well, that's odd. I'm going to give myself a discount and try doing that for $1, right? If the server-side programmer is doing things correctly, it should not be taking prices from a client post, because if you're familiar with security and all of that sort of stuff, it's a hostile environment on the web. You can't trust things that are sent from clients. So this would be a perfect example of, you better not be pulling the price off what the client said. So if I hit execute and I go back here, I'm just going to go up to inspectors. This has compression, so I'm just going to take that off. And if I go look at this and I roll down a little bit, I'll actually pop it up in Notepad so we can see it a little better. I ordered one Acer convertible, and the order I'm going to cost me $1 each. Oops, right? And again, this wouldn't be easy necessarily to simulate, but I can tweak anything I want. And now I've proven that the server-side validation, basically, they're not validating things. They're actually pulling the price from what gets posted, which would be a very big problem. You're not going to be in business very long if you sell tablets for $1. The next one is executing curl commands. So if you've heard of curl commands before, they're just simple ways to make web requests. I get people who audit our website and say, here, I found a security flaw. Security people especially love having curl commands. So they gave me a curl command. My problem was, I'm on Windows. I don't have a trusted curl client. So when I stumbled across this in Fiddler, I was pretty excited about it. If I go into my Composer again, there it is. I can actually say I want to do a scratch pad. This is curl. So I can go right here and say curl, just ask for bing.com and execute it. And then we'll see down here, for some reason that failed. It didn't like something in here, but I can execute all of those specific requests, and then it would make a request out to the server. So I don't know why that is not cooperating right now. But if you need to do curl things, just be where it's built in. So it was the first time I had a trusted client like Fiddler where I could make those kind of requests. That's all cool, but I want to be able to do breakpoints. And so what I want to do is, when the browser sends something to the server, I'd like to intercept it on the fly so that I could make modifications to it. I'm going to come back to this later, but at the bottom here, it's called the quick exec section. I'm just going to say BPU bootstrap min.css. So I'm going to hit enter. So what I've instructed Fiddler is, if you ever see now a request for that bootstrap min file, I want you to pause. it came from the browser, but before you send it to the server, wait until I modify and play with it. So I'm going to do this. I'll go back to here. I'll hit Control F5. Probably can't see it. It's kind of subtle, but this is glowing now. And if I look, it's sitting on that Bootstrap min CSS and it's waiting. So essentially the browser sent it, but it has not been passed on to the server yet. So if I come into the inspectors, this is the request. I can just come and do the modification again. So I'm sticking with that theme so that we see the same thing. I modified the headers that came up from the browser before it actually goes to the web server. Now I'm going to say run to completion. And now when this finishes, you should end up seeing that Bootstrap here is going to come in and it'll be the uncompressed version again. So that's very powerful. So now you saw some things you could do with filters. You could take off certain headers. There is Composer, that's handy as well. But sometimes setting a breakpoint is exactly what you want to do so that you can get in between. So I'm going to type BPU. That turns that breakpoint off. So that one was on the way from the client to the web server. If I do BP after, what it's going to do is it sent the request to the server. When it came back, I'm going to get a breakpoint again. So I set that one on site.css. I'm going to just do this again. I hit Control F5. I go in and do my, actually got to find one here. That's apparently not my right one. Do that again. Okay, so you can see now it's sitting and waiting on site.css. So again, I can come over here, take off the compression. I can kind of play around here and look for something I might want to change. So if I want to tweak the CSS in any way, so I'm just going to change this color to be purple. I should do Chuck Norris. That's actually a CSS color. I'll do purple for now. If I say run to completion, so that what happened there again, it went from the browser to Fiddler up to the web server. When it came back, it let me modify it on the fly, and you can see it did the modification. So this is really handy when I need to just tweak something that's on a, say, a production server. I don't want to go deploy everything. I just want to be able to get in between and make some changes. So side note on this, performance, we were doing buffer or minifying and bundling all of our CSS files. So we took all of our CSS files and put them into one CSS in HTTP 1.1 that helped performance. The issue was that it worked fine for about a month. I added some more styles, it failed. I couldn't figure out why, so I did a breakpoint like that. I just said, I'm gonna make requests to the server and I'm just gonna change the CSS and see what I can find. And it turned out there's a rule in IE that you can't have more than 4,096 unique styles per style sheet. So we had just crossed that value. So IE didn't work, everybody else did. I wouldn't have found it very quickly unless I was able to just go in and make tweaks like that without having to do a full build, compile, and move for the deployment. If that makes sense. I'm going to turn off, I got to go turn that off again in Fiddler so that I don't stop all the time. So BP after, I'm just going to hit enter. Now that's turned off for that file. So again, you can do it on any specific files you want.